What's up, Taiwan? I'm Reece with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. Taiwan has been showing off its missile firepower, launching a series of surface-to-air missiles at a test site in the country's southeast. The live fire drills come against the backdrop of mounting cross-strait tensions. Jaime Okan reports from Pingdong County.
Taiwan's military testing its air defense. The military is conducting 3 days of annual tests on a variety of weapons in its arsenal. This round includes a U.S.-made Patriot air defense system and Taiwan's own Skybow 3. Both of these systems are crucial for protecting the skies above Taiwan.
这次精准飞弹射击的任务规划，主要目的在验证精准弹药的效能以及装备的可靠度。我们今天的科目主要是以反飞机作战为主。
These kinds of drills have been conducted for decades, but this is the first time in over 12 years that the military has opened its doors to this base. This facility is known as Jiupeng Base, and it's one of Taiwan's most secret bases. That's because not too many people have been inside. It's located in the southeastern part of the country, and it's here where Taiwan tests some of its most advanced weapons. The military is closing the airspace and waters around Jiupeng Base during the tests, as fighter jets and warships will also be joining later this week. The exercises are part of Taiwan's effort to boost its defense, as it's faced with the threat of invasion from neighboring China, which claims the country as part of its territory. For decades, Taiwan has relied heavily on the U.S. for its defense, purchasing almost all of its weapons from Washington. But with a record defense budget nearing approval, that might be about to change.
It has been Taiwan's defense policy to try to be relatively more reliant on their own industrial bases. If you have your own system produced or you integrate your own system, then it's much easier to maintain those systems.
Taiwan has poured billions of US dollars into developing its own weapons programs, and that includes making advanced missiles capable of hitting Chinese fighter jets in the event of a war. Missile production has slowly grown from about 300 missiles a year in 2020 to now producing more than 1,000 missiles annually. Military officials say if China's attacked, Taiwan would need tens of thousands of missiles, and that's why some say more needs to be done.
In particular, ramping up missile production is incredibly important. I hope that continues. I don't think that Taiwan right now is where it needs to be in terms of just pumping out the munitions and missiles that it would need during a contingency. Exercises
like these serve dual roles, practicing for the worst case scenario while also acting as a deterrent by demonstrating the country's resolve. But the key to any defense isn't just in training Taiwan's soldiers. It's making sure they have the equipment they need to succeed. Ryan Wu and Jaime Okan in Pingdong County for TaiwanPlus.
The transportation minister has stepped down amid revelations he had an extramarital affair. Li Mengyan was inspecting rail stations in the country's south when details of his affair appeared online. He promptly resigned and apologized, saying his past behavior had impacted public confidence in the transportation ministry. The 57-year-old had been in the post since May. Questions are being raised over the country's rental subsidy program. The government initiative is being extended for another 2 years, but critics say it's not actually working. John Van Trieste explains.
As he works to complete his master's degree, Wu Shidao calls this home of less than 13 square meters home. By Taipei standards, his monthly rent of $140 is a bargain. And thanks to a government rental subsidy program expanded last July and now set to continue through 2026, he pays less than $30.
房东也没有觉得怎么样，就租补贴要写，可能契约比较详细嘛，然后他就会愿意帮我们再重新写一些更详细的契约。
But Wu is one of the lucky ones. Housing justice advocates say they see landlords using subsidies as an excuse to raise rents. They're especially concerned about tenants who unknowingly rent on the black market. According to estimates from recent years, about 80% of rental units are unregistered, meaning their landlords don't pay tax on rental income. That means most renters in Taiwan would accidentally out their landlords to the tax office if they ask for subsidies, leaving them open to retaliation.
其实政府现在是都没有办法控管这件事情的，因为租屋黑市的关系，政府也不知道说到底哪个地方因此而涨得特别的多，对，所以就很难制定一个比较完善的住宅政策。
But officials from the Interior Ministry see things differently. The expansion of the subsidy program last year was meant to help up to 500,000 people. That goal has already been broken.
核定我们已经超过60万户，表示什么？民众对这一块其实他是申请是很踊跃的，表示他的确需要政府来给他做帮忙。
But Taiwan's cost of living continues to rise. This year, the consumer price index is expected to go up by over 2%. When average incomes are factored in, Taiwan is one of the world's most expensive housing markets, meaning rental prices continue to be a political issue. Joseph Wu and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
A decent rental may be hard to come by in Taiwan, but there is some good news. Income is rising. According to the country's statistics office, the average annual income was $22,200 in 2023. That includes wages, investments, rental income, and is about $150 more than in 2022. Income for Taiwanese workers under 30 increased by more than $250. They earned on average $17,000 last year. The government statistics agency says an improving economy and lower unemployment is behind the rise. But some observers say young people are still struggling to make ends meet. China and Vietnam are signaling they want to deepen relations. That's after Chinese President Xi Jinping met with his Vietnamese counterpart To Lom, who's in Beijing on his first overseas trip since becoming leader.
我愿同你建立良好工作关系和个人友谊，共同引领中越命运共同体建设走深走实。
To Lom became Vietnam's Communist Party chief earlier this month. He told Xi that China is a top foreign policy priority for Vietnam. A statement from the Vietnamese government says the two leaders agreed to boost defense and security ties. They also signed 14 deals to boost cooperation, including on transport and trade. Vice President Kamala Harris has made a surprise appearance on the first day of the Democratic National Convention. More than 4,000 delegates will attend the convention over 4 days, as the Democratic Party attempts to ramp up enthusiasm for Harris's bid for the White House. Rosie Grenadier reports.
To a roaring crowd, presidential hopeful Kamala Harris takes the stage on the first day of the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. Not expected until the convention's closing, her appearance now a surprise, to pay tribute to President Joe Biden and thank him for his leadership before speaking directly to voters.
This November, we will come together and declare with one voice, as one people, we are moving forward. With optimism, hope, and faith.
Vice President Kamala Harris and running mate Minnesota Governor Tim Walz are riding a wave of voter enthusiasm into the DNC that has transformed the race against former President Donald Trump. Just 3 months out from the election, the new pair of Democratic hopefuls were put forward when President Joe Biden ended his re-election bid, after a growing number of Democrats questioned his ability to lead for another 4 years. Since the baton was passed to Harris, she's seen a sharp rise in support, polling 49% nationally among registered voters, over Donald Trump's 45%. Speakers here today took aim at Trump and celebrated Biden's leadership over the past 4 years. Then the man in command took the stage himself, recounting the accomplishments of his administration, noting Harris's role.
Are you ready to vote for freedom? Are you ready to vote for democracy and for America? Are you ready to elect Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, President and Vice President of the United States? I stand before you now on this August night to report that democracy has prevailed. Democracy has delivered. And now democracy must be preserved.
More than 4,000 delegates will gather in Chicago over the 4-day convention, as politicians, celebrities and supporters champion Harris's bid for the White House and officially nominate her for president. Speakers are set to promote the Democratic Party's platform and policies and draw a sharp contrast with Trump and his party's Project 2025, a conservative blueprint for the next Republican president. The Democratic Party unveiled their platform in July when Biden was still running for president, proposing a raised minimum wage, more affordable childcare, lower healthcare costs, clean energy projects, increasing women's reproductive rights, and bans on assault weapons. The platform also mentions support for a negotiated two-state solution between Israel and Palestine amid the war raging in Gaza. It's a major issue striking a chord with voters, with many taking to the streets outside the conference to demand Harris end American support for Israel.
I think it's important for them to realize that they can't take our votes for granted. The Democratic National Committee needs to be opposed to genocide. It needs to be pro-justice. It needs to take active steps to create a more just and equitable society. Words aren't enough. Actions are what we need to see.
At least 4 protesters were arrested outside the venue after breaking through a security fence. Many demonstrators claiming the Democratic Party could lose their vote if they don't act to end the war. Votes that will be crucial in sustaining support for Harris, with Democrats and Republicans neck and neck in the race to the White House. Dolphine Chen and Rosie Greninger for TaiwanPlus.
The US intelligence community says Iran is trying to influence the US election outcome by targeting presidential campaigns. A joint statement released by the US intelligence community says Iranian cyber operations have been increasingly aggressive during this year's election cycle. It comes after the Trump campaign earlier in August reported Iranian attempts to steal campaign information. The Harris campaign has also confirmed an FBI investigation into an attempted hack. A bird that was once considered a nuisance by farmers here in Taiwan and at one point only numbered around 50 is now thriving. Chris Gorin looks at how this very special species was brought back from the brink.
Here in the lotus ponds of Kaohsiung's Meinong district in southern Taiwan, vegetable farmers live alongside the pheasant-tailed jacana. The bird is famous for its habit of walking on top of the floating plants. They not only search for food on the surface of the plants, but they also lay and hatch their eggs. Locals say the birds can draw a crowd.
肉眼看就看得出来了。有几只大的？这边一只啊，在那个跑了，你看，在跑呢。跑那个是小的哦。对，黄黄的是小的。
每天很多赏鸟人士都在我的园子来拍，我还去搬那个椅子来给他们坐，很多，每天都很多啊。
It's a success story for the species. Farmers used to consider the birds a nuisance. At one point, there were only about 50 left in Taiwan. But about 20 years ago, farmers here began conservation efforts to protect the birds, and they now number more than 3,000. Efforts have included using labeling to show customers that their farms help support the birds.
我每次就抱那个复制柠檬的那个袋子啊，你没有包给人家看的话，人家都不晓得。
然后也是希望就是水质能够，农民的田当然它栖息的环境，对，农民如果有因此而受到一些损失的话，再把它水质当成一种资源这样子，也能够帮他们的野莲加分。
With labeling and use of 24-hour habitat live streams, the pheasant-tailed jacana has become a national favorite, showing that with a little creativity, farmers and conservationists can find a sustainable balance. John Su and Chris Gorin for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, check out this colourful Belgian regatta with more than 200 participants rowing in floating bathtubs. I'm Reece. Take care and see you next time.